Some other things that we have to consider when for key installation considerations is safety. The biggest one is safety. Minimum at least 2 people to lift any of the products. Okay, 70-inch display at 200 pounds or the 84-inch display at approximately 250 pounds. Some people will use, or if it is available or convenient, they'll use some kind of a lifting device to assist with the lift. Other than that, it's take it from the packaging cradle and hang it on the wall. Make sure that you use proper lifting techniques because it is a very large unit. With this integrated stand, it does take a lot of the pressure off of planning your room. So keeping in mind, qualify your room. How big is it? How many people do you want to entertain? Should be so that you're choosing the right large, medium, or small. Customer expectations. Where do they want it and how do they want it laid out? Power and networking connections. It is better if you can get if the customer can have the facilities people come in and put everything behind, so it would be hidden behind the board, but still easily accessible. Okay, we have to take into consideration the wall construction because so many of our meeting rooms that we deal with now are either modular wall, and they're just a fabric panel, or they have to be reinforced so that they can accommodate the mount and the weight of the display. But with the floor-assisted construction wall mount, is so much easier, and it takes a lot of that away. The ceiling lighting, if it's too bright in the front of your room, perhaps you can incorporate a room control system. Natural lighting, so many of the meeting rooms that we've been in have at least 1 or 2 walls that are glass and or windows to the outside world. So it can give you might have to darken the room slightly by the use of shutters or blinds. The position of the table in relation to the raceway. The raceway is approximately 6 or 6.5 feet long, so it means the front of the table is probably going to be within 5 feet of the wall or the front of the display. If your room is too narrow, the presenter cannot be on the side of the board, and it takes away from the experience. Okay, in this video segment, we're talking about putting the stand together. And what they have here, I'm just going to pause it for a second. What they have here is we have basically 4 pieces of aluminum extrusion, and we're going to assemble them. We're going to actually be doing this process twice, especially for the large room display in these videos. And then what's going to happen is it'll walk you through. Everything comes complete in a box, so it's a box assembly. All right? And we'll just carry on. So here they're showing you the pre-drilled holes and everything else is in the bottom, mounting hardware. They start it with a hand screwdriver just because it is aluminum extrusion and we don't want to strip it out. Then they are using a hand tool, power tool assist, but this particular hand tool, this drill, has a torque setting on it already, and 4 to 6 pounds is what they normally use, so we aren't stripping out the aluminum. If you do strip out the aluminum, that's a whole new world. You're going to have to go into RMA and get away from that. So here, as I say, a 2-person makes it a whole lot easier. You can do it with 1 person, but it's a lot easier with 2. They put the bottom member on, 2 vertical uprights, 4 screws per corner. So here we have the 3 sides. The 4th side is actually the channel that for the mount. Okay, as you can see, it has slotted holes in the back. Here they're adjusting to the different screws that are on the side. So there's graduations of groups. And I believe in this particular case, they've opted for the 4th set of grouping. There's then 2 screws that go on the top section and 2 screws that go on the bottom to hold the top upright or the top bracket in position. Then, as you can see, he's using a hand tool here. Socket head screws. Lines it up. One thing you can do just to be extra certain, because there is a little bit of play in the holes, is take your T level and make sure that your corner is 90 degrees. Okay, nothing looks worse than a sloppy fit, so that's what we're shooting for. Okay, like I say, 2 screws in each top and bottom, so 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom, 4 screws all together. Then measuring the panel itself. Here what they're doing is they're measuring the wall, and what he's explaining here is he likes to, the display itself is like 67 inches wide, and what he's doing is he's finding a point where he can have a little bit of room from either side. If you mount the mounts as close as you possibly can together, what happens is you have no room to slide it to the outside, and you only have about 2 inches to slide it over in the first place. So what he's trying to explain here is that in order to get 2 displays side by side and then get one on the wall, push it to the outside, and then take the other one, and we're going to push it to the outside to get in with your shoulder so you can mount it. Then you can push them together and line them up on that line in the center. This particular room has been equipped with reinforced 3/4 inch plywood behind this drywall. So this is a modular wall, then it has a 3/4 inch plywood inside the wall. So they're using they've pre-drilled the holes, self-tapping lag bolt with a washer, and they're probably going to sink, in this particular video, they're sinking 2 on each side, but that's because it's a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood behind. Normally, if this was a standard aluminum stud wall, we would use togglers, or we would probably drop 2 more in the bottom row. So 2 in the top row, 2 in the bottom row into the reinforced wall in behind. Be mindful of the electrical connections, that you don't drill into an electrical cabling. Okay? Now they're putting on the mounts, and there's something that we have to explain here with the mounts. Okay? With the mount, this small green area is the kickstand, and you have to make it so that the kickstand is on the inside of the mount, not on the outside, because when it's mounted to the wall, if it's mounted to the outside, you would not be able to engage the kickstand because you have to push down and then flip out. So it would interfere with the wall mount. So here they're using screws, go into like hole number 2. Here he's showing you the kickstand and explaining it again. If it's on the outside, if they're pointed to the inside, no worries, and it works just fine for your cable access. If you put them to the outside, they become non-functional. It also has a locking device that once it's in position, that's that green slide. So he's going to mount it. 2 screws, one on the top, one on the bottom. Directly into the display. You can see there the green bar, that's the top of the locking device. For security, you can put a padlock or a Kensington lock through it, but we need to move that mechanism down so that it doesn't interfere, as he just did. So he's moving the locking mechanism down, and that other little green pivoting portion, that's the kickstand. Mounting the second side, again, one screw in the top, one in the bottom. Moving the locking mechanism down. There it's in the up position. We don't want to bend that. That's why we push it down, because the weight of the display will bend that metal bracket. So now they're getting prepared to lift the mount, or to lift the display onto the mount. It's important not to lift by the bezels. There are 4 handles on the back, and put your hand on the glass face. And as you're lifting, what he's going to do is the one fellow is going to move the box out of the way, the cradle box, the packaging. The other 2 fellows are going to lift, and then all 3 of them will assist. Try not to use the bezels. One hand on the face, one hand on the back. It should be a single lift. Try not to grab the bezels. Lower onto the top of the support. Once it's in position, make sure that you have another look to make sure that you're on the bar or on the member. Now in this particular case, they're looking at the measurement to the bottom, to the top of the bezel. The top of the bezel is at 32 inches. This measurement is dependent on your layout of your room, because when you're seated, you should take an average person seated in a chair and take the measurement to their eye level, and then it should be 2 to 4 inches higher than that, so that the camera is already high, but it appears that you get that eye-to-eye contact. So then what he's going to do is they're going to move it to the outside, like we said, to give room for when he's putting the other display up, so when he moves into position, he's not cramped. Here is explaining that the center of the eye should be at the center of the screen plus 2 to 4 inches. So then they're taking the measurement to the other side. Now what they've done here is the line is going to be in the center of the room, and both displays will line up onto that vertical line in the wall. So it allows for just a little bit extra room, 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the point where they're going to meet. He moves the mount to the outside. This just makes it that much easier, because we have 1.5 inches to 2 inches of play movement left to right with each display. So then it allows us to push them together. Here he's setting his screws. You notice they put the recessed electrical outlet in behind each panel, and then the networking outlet is also recessed. Just to go over it again, as you can see, he's holding one of the togglers in his hand. You just put it back in the bag. That toggler is if we were using an aluminum or a steel stud wall. In this case, that entire wall is reinforced with 3/4 inch plywood, so they're using self-tapping lag bolts with pre-drilled pilot holes. With this configuration of stand, the majority of the weight is on the stand, on the floor, making sure securing the top mounting bracket to the wall is ensuring that it can't turn, flip or tilt forward. So here he is, he's installing the second bracket, a top view. Where you see this socket head screw, this is the leveling feature on the two sides. So with an extension on the drill and an Allen key, he can adjust the level so everything appears level and plumb. So here what we're doing is we're back with the guys, and he's talking about, he's pushed that out. He's talking about the recessed receptacles. Make sure that you have enough room for your plugs to not to be interfering with the back of the display. So there's one of the mounting brackets on the bottom. Remember to put your hand on the face of the display. Don't grab the bezel. And there goes the lift. It's going to be one more, so they're bringing in more help. And then it's on the mount. What they're doing there is they moved it over just slightly so that it's in the range. Then they'll bring the display on the right further over. They're trying to line up on that center line, that vertical line on the wall panel. Now he's going to show the kickstand feature. So they lock the mount into place. He's talking about the cabling because it's much easier to get under this with the kickstand. So as you can see, they have all their parts laid out on the table. He's going through the different cables that you're going to need to help set up the raceway. Video cables, audio cables, USBs, DVI connectors. We have to go under the bottom bracket, then up where there will be two pieces of plexiglass, smoke plexiglass that go in between there, and making sure that the cabling is correct. So he's put the kickstand out, HDMI cable. An HDMI cable under that main bar. Then he's going to make the connection, and it's going to come through the raceway. So this is your audio. In this part, what they're doing is they're making the connection from a display, the primary display, to the secondary display. He's going to put that cable behind the mount, the vertical mount. They'll hide it. This gap in between the two displays they'll move the right-hand display in closer. It's your standard VGA. Here they're preparing the raceway. So it comes in a couple of different pieces, but primarily you have to be able to anchor the raceway to the floor. And then it has channels that you can do your cable management so that it makes it as seamless as possible. This will also have a laptop connection, so that's going to be a USB. And this particular piece of footage, they're using a VGA USB combination for the remote laptop, but it can be interchanged with HDMI or data port, whichever you prefer. Speakers, power for the console, and your network cable. Here he's assembling the console. So it has 3 cables that come inside, 1 USB, 1 power cable, and your VGA or your HDMI cable, okay? You have to be cautious on how you put this together. It does have a little cleat on the bottom, so you put the 2 screws that hold things in place. Then you snap the back on and then secure it with 2 screws. Mind your cabling because it comes through and then mounts like that. So it's a flat fit onto the tabletop. Standard power brick. The plexiglass, smoked plexiglass bottom, so it hides all the cabling and makes it a nice, neat appearance. A little channel that sits on top. It's easier to put the 2 sides in first and then drop it down into the channel. Then slide the 2 displays together. Here you're going to have to check your top to make sure that things line up. Your top and your bottoms. So you're also checking for level across the top. You're also checking to make sure that the foot is not too far out. If an adjustment's needed, then what we do is we have a long adapter with a socket, and we can adjust those 2 socket head screws to raise or lower to level the top line. So checking with the carpenter's level. You may have to do some adjustments back and forth. So we're going back to the earlier portion here. What he's explaining is this is what he's adjusting to level the top of the display. Kickstand down, locking mechanism goes up. It allows the cables to come out the bottom. Where he's showing you there is the security feature where you can put a padlock or some kind of locking device in there so nobody will walk away with your display. Here he's installing the top cover to the raceway. And then this is a small nose piece. And then one screw holds it in place. Several screws hold the top of the raceway to the bottom. This makes it so much smoother than having to core through most times concrete floors, and that kind of stuff adds to a great deal of costs. This is much more efficient. Getting ready to prepare for the speakers now. Okay, as you can see, they're approximately 6 inches to the top screw hole. So then what they'll do is they'll measure the sides. You want these nice and snug, but still allow yourself a little bit of room to the outside so that if for whatever reason you had to make an adjustment between the panels, that you could slide it out. No side-to-side adjustment is needed to use the kickstand. Drills his pilot hole. Inserts the insert into the wall. Takes the bracket, puts on the mount, checks the level. Marks, pre-drills, puts the second insert in, and then mounts the speaker. Here they're setting up the microphone, the pucks. What they're doing is the tabletop pucks. So what they're doing is they're daisy chaining them together, and then they make the connection into the display itself. Connecting the speakers. We already run the speaker wire beforehand. There's a channel cut out for easy wire management. A nice little block so it holds the speaker wire in place. And then the speaker hangs. So on the master side, you have the connection to the second speaker on the side, a Molex connection. You have the red and white speaker input, and you also have a power cable. And all of that goes through that small port on the side. Then there's a little keeper that keeps everything in place. And then hang the speaker. So in a small room setup or a medium room setup where you have one microphone, desktop microphone, the mute button is in the top, and depending on the length of your table or size of your room, you can daisy chain up to 5 microphones together. Here is the camera. He's just opened the shutter, closed it again. Has integrated speakers and also has an integrated microphone. As you can see that in the top of the display, there is a hole where where it will go. So if it's a center mount single display, or if it's a dual configuration, you can still put that in. So there's your power. Your USB setting. Communication for the microphone. There's a port in the center of the display where those cables will mount into. Those cables get plugged into the primary display, or the one on the left. Shutters closed, shows you red. Shutters open. Focus ring.